how, like I said, like people will take your ideas, people will sit there and want to use your gift, but not like really give ownership or not give an opportunity to thrive, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
you have your own agency, but at the same time, like you sometimes do internal capsules, but then also like you'll work with other brands and other bigger
Right.
entities, right?
Right.
Like what is that experience has just been like for you as a black man in America navigating those waters? Like I remember when we were talking earlier this week about just your experiences starting out just working, at that shop,
Right.
and then realizing, you're not going to necessarily be an owner. They're not going to give you that, even though you were providing so much value and you were the reason why that store was popping.
Right.
So like, yeah, like what has that been like for you, being in
It's
this space and operating at the high level that you've been operating at?
yeah. It's been a it's been a crazy ride. That's the best way I could put it. Because
Okay.
it's two things that are happening at all times. Like you are pushing out ideas, but there are people that are working for these brands that are responsible for ideas as well. And the balance that has to be created, and the reason why I say this about relationships is because sometimes you may put out an idea and it falls into a department where the person that works in that department should have thought of this, and it makes them have less value to the company, or at least that's how they feel about it. This is why a lot of designers in the beginning didn't mesh well with customizers, because we didn't have the technical experience, to put a shoe together via CAD and all these other things or we didn't go to school for industrial design. So coming in this space and just saying, hey, we're going to give this guy a shoe, and you've been sitting there,
Yeah.
it kind of creates this tension. So I don't necessarily say it's a hate for me personally or for any artist personally walking into those spaces, but it's a real thing that you have to deal with because there's an imbalance. You have a company that you're running and you already have people that are flipping hamburgers, but then you take them off the grill and you put some new guy that's supposed to be able to flip hamburgers way quicker than anybody.
Right.
Somebody's gonna look
Right.
at somebody funny, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
but as a black man in it, it's an extra level, that you experience because you're coming from a deficit, and that's an internal thing most of the time because of where we come from. I got 10 kids in my family. I grew up without the shoes. I had my shoes used to talk when I used to go to school. I'm talking 6th grade. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So operating from that standpoint, your goal is to try to work with a brand or that's like the focal point. You're just like, hey, I want to work with a brand, but they don't see you or view you the same way. So my thing was like, I need to connect the value, to my persona as a black man, as a black designer, and help them to see that it's necessary. Because
Yeah.
if nobody's doing collabs that they don't deem necessary, I remember being a person that wasn't afraid to ask somebody for something. But before asking, I would always think about like, how can I make this question or pose this in a way where they can't say no?
Yeah.
And so I would reverse engineer whatever it is that I'm about to ask so that you can't say no. It's just like, oh, it's so much of a win for you that,
Yeah.
you can't say no to me. And that's what it's been like for me in this industry, where I've started doing this in 2004. 2006, I had 2 big brands steal some ideas.
What was that starting place? Like, what were you doing in 2004? Like, what was that starting place for you?
I started in retail, but I was doing, at that time, I had done retail since 2017 up until that point,
Okay.
and did some other things in between. But I was doing visual merchandising and ended up gaining a client in Cleveland, Ohio that wanted some shoes design. And a buddy of mine didn't come through on doing the custom shoes. And the guy asked me if I could do it. And it was my first shot out. So I ended up praying about it, same process. And I designed the shoes and they sold like crazy. And so I partnered with that guy and we ended up having the first sneaker boutique in Cleveland, Ohio. It was called Unlock. It was in a place called Tower City. But that's what I was doing in 2006. So That's where it started. But it started on the kitchen table, man. Started in the basement, wherever I was. You know, I was trying to actually create and put down more ideas. But I saw at that moment, even though I had a successful business, the world still didn't know me, and not even the right people didn't even know me. Like I was doing stuff for Usher, Chris Brown, all the celebrities that came in
Yeah.
town, but for a big company to come in and look at what you're doing and then take some of that concept and reproduce it, it's to say that nobody knows who you are.
Right, right.
So after that, I started studying marketing on my own. I was just like, okay, I need to learn marketing because clearly I need to make sure that people know that I exist while I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that was the turning point for me, was understanding that 20% of anything that I do at any time can be taken and changed and can be somebody else's, which the brands do often to each other. And
Yeah.
then the next thing was understanding that I needed to learn marketing on my own and how I wanted to market myself. So
Bruh,
those
like
were
all that you kicking right now is like this constant talk of investing in yourself.
yeah.
And like you start like going for, like I said, from a kitchen table, like not having the backdrop of like really understanding like the structure of design, and you
Right.
constantly teaching yourself. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like that's such a huge deal, man. I just want to make sure that everyone that's on, that they're paying attention, that we're hearing that, because it's the same story with me. Like I didn't come from a design background. I
Right.
mean, I came from like retail space, being active outside,
Right.
and it was like, no, but this is what I want to do. Even when I
Right.
was in undergrad, I was a marketing major. It did not. It was not. It wasn't design. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even
Right.
know that was even an option. But
Right.
as soon as I locked in and said, like, yo, like this is what I'm gonna do, I constantly invested my time and my dollars, you know what I'm saying, into enriching these skills that I did not have. It wasn't waiting on anyone to come and tell me what I needed to do. Like I went and figured it out. And
Exactly.
I think that's a huge, testament, to like why you've been able to have the kind of success that you've had thus far. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that we highlighted that, man.
Yeah, it's necessary, man, and having an open ear too for constructive criticism is really key as well on your way when you're learning in this way. You definitely, because you don't have any instructors, right? You're your own instructor,
Mm-hmm.
so you're teaching yourself, and then there'll be somebody that either God will send or you'll pass through, and they'll give you some constructive criticism. It's your job to now let that shape what you're doing, because you're not in the classroom. So those become my walls. So when people look at me and I talk about Emery and how he was the OG, like that's how I grew up. Like I grew up, just not running the streets, but I was that kid in the neighborhood that was always doing something, trying to hustle and help the neighbor, with their lawn or groceries or something. Like I was always that guy. And those people are the people that shaped who I am, because I didn't
Yeah.
have the formal training. So that bet on yourself concept that Emery is it's constantly preaching to people is real. And I'll even say the biblical proof of it is, your gifts will make room for you. The Bible says
That's a
that. So
that's a
that's
that's a
like,
super fact. That's a
right, yeah.
super fact, bro.
But it doesn't say anybody else's gifts is going to make room for you. It says your gifts will make room for you. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
times we get in this industry, or we start off doing what we're doing, and we expect handouts, or we expect people to just see us, and you see that I'm trying and struggling, you should help me. But you got
Right,
to
right.
actually get to a point where somebody can take that baton from you. You're running a relay. You got to run your part, and then they take that baton, and then they're running it for you. And it comes back
Nah.
around. So that's my understanding of it.
That's what's up, man. Yo, so I do want to dive into. There's a couple questions that have been here, so I
Okay.
want to tap in on that. And yeah, if anyone has any questions that they want to toss in there, like we're gonna take like the next 15, 20 minutes to go ahead and address those. The first one comes from Starstruck Quan. Appreciate you hopping in and asking your question. So he asked, AJ, are you doing any mentoring? And then I would also add to that, AJ, like, what does even mentorship look like realistically in this space?
In this space right now, I do a lot of mentoring. I give my phone number I'm a telephone person. I cannot email or
Oh,
text.
analog. Just pick up the jack. What's happening?
just let's talk about it. And I find that mentoring in that space is way easier to manage than texting back and forth or emailing and trying to plan something that way, because you got to think, I'm somebody that's constantly creating. I'm using my hands to do design work, whether it's graphic design or actual literal design. These things are constantly moving. So to email back and forth, I can't do that, you know. So I give people my number so that they can, you know, talk, or if they have questions, you know, I try my best to answer through DM as well. But I'm a hop on the phone guy, and I believe in it. I believe that's how you actually do drop the rope, you know, down to somebody else. You have to be able to give them what's gonna work, what's worked for you, but what also works universally. Because I think
Yeah.
everybody didn't have the life that I had, so you didn't walk the same road. So our stories are going to be different. But the mentorship that I try to offer people is just like, hey, these are some sure ways to unlock who you are. Number one, let's pray about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Number two, you need to actually understand, like, God gives you glimpses of who you are and what you're supposed to do. It's up to you to actually lose the fear and walk into it. Because sometimes
Facts.
you'll see that you're great at something, but you'll be like, but, you know, I got a sure check this week from this other gig. Well, you passed on your own self. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not somebody else passing on you. And then when the opportunity comes, then you've actually, because you haven't spent the time cultivating that thing, the opportunity presents itself and you're not ready. You know, so.
Bro, like that. I mean, and I know, you know, that's just been a common thing that I pray people are picking up on, like that dependency on the Lord, you know,
Mhm.
that dependency on Christ, like, is so pivotal, you know,
Mhm.
like you can't, like, there's no way to extract, you know, the progress, like just the personal progress, regardless of what that ends up looking like, you
Right.
know, in the, you know, in a dollars and cents manner, or like in public persona, like just like the
Right.
growth as a person, like you're not going to be able to get around that, man. So I
No.
personally, I just appreciate, because I know that's what I be kicking all the time, and
Yeah.
I'm always encouraged when I hear other people, you know,
Yeah.
being on at the same time. So I
And
appreciate
I'm a,
that, man.
and I and I'm gonna keep it real. Like, you can do a lot with willpower,
Yeah,
but willpower is
that joint's
designed
gonna
to.
end at some point.
It's gonna peak. I tell people that all the time. Like, it's gonna peak. Like, your muscles peak while you're working out, and then you got to take a break. But you got to know who the ultimate the who you can ultimately rely on when you're
Yeah,
not strong. You know what I mean? And that's to me. I'm giving people what works for me, like just true honesty. Everything
nah,
I have, everything that I've done is because of this lifestyle.
nah, that's what's up, man. Another question I want to hop into is Teddy Kruger. Teddy, appreciate you joining us, man, and submitting your question. How do you deal with meeting deadlines? I want to touch on this, and then Adrian, I'm gonna shoot it over your way as well.
I know
Yeah.
Teddy. Shout out to Teddy. Teddy is my manager. Teddy is a guy that I work with very closely. How do you deal with meeting deadlines? Um, it's tough sometimes. I would say that.
I'm assuming Teddy knows that more than anybody with you.
Of course, of course. I mean,
That's why he asked it. Yeah.
yeah, because it's a real question. I think that artists have to take that serious when you work for yourself. You're an entrepreneur. There are hard deadlines. There are soft deadlines. You know, and then there's these creative deadlines that you have to meet as a designer yourself. And sometimes the inspiration isn't always there. I think that sometimes we put ourselves up against a wall thinking that the idea is just going to pop out, or it's going to present itself in a way where you could actually just do it in a flip of a hat, and you find that it's not that. The inspiration didn't come, or maybe you've been moving too fast, maybe you ain't been praying right, and now you don't have that thing, and now you're trying to push something out. So for me
Yeah.
personally, I don't push anything out. If it's not right, you're not getting it. And
Right.
that's just any company, because I'd rather be the guy that didn't hit the deadline than to push something over to you and you reject it and turn it back. And I know personally I didn't give it 100. So
Yeah.
that's just my concept. Now, on being prepared and trying to be prepared, I will say that you probably want to give yourself enough time. Be realistic. Like if
Bro,
you
that realistic expectations is so key. Like my partner Shep, man, like every time we sit down for our owners meeting and we're talking about the release of a product or
Yeah.
anything that we're doing, he's always like, yeah, let's add another 2 or 3 weeks on top of that to give space for, like, there's always like the ideal of like, oh, if
Right.
everything lines up perfectly, then great, but
Right.
we all know that never, especially in our business, in our
Right.
industry, things are always going crazy and it's out of our control. But the
Exactly.
consumer don't realize that. So you don't want to start making these promises, setting deadlines and dates for releases, and then you
Right.
can't. Yeah, now you're
Right.
stuck to that.
Listen, and I've been there. I've been there a few times because the client is so big. Sometimes you're like, I got to get this done because this is this big client, and sometimes you will push through and persevere and
Yeah.
make it. But other times, I think that what Teddy has taught me was that don't start work before you get what you need to work. See, this is
Mm.
where a lot of unrealistic expectations comes from, is that, sometimes you can be super inspired to do something and you could actually do it and there's no, check that's come up front. But then sometimes it's like, okay, in order to do this, I'm going to have to jump through X, Y, Z. I'm going to do Illustrator. I'm going to have to, the work that you're
Yeah.
going to have to do. And it feels bad because the company's pressuring you, but they haven't given you anything to show them that they value what you're getting ready to walk through. And
Right.
so
Right.
it ends up being almost discouraging. So yeah, if you need to tell them, hey, it's going to take, a month for me to get that to you, or 2 months for me to get that to you, it's better to keep it real with them and risk, the opportunity of not having to do it at all than to put yourself up against the wall, not hit the deadline. And now there's all this,
Mm-hmm.
talk going back and forth about, how you're that guy. So.
Word. So that's what's up. I want to get to another question. I don't know if this is Tim underscore work or time underscore work. So, my apologies, level on if I mess that up. But how do you structure business end? Many designers struggle to set the business end up. You know, I'll say again. I'll touch on this, and then AJ, I'll pass it back off to you. I think that it's important to kind of understand what kind of business are you in? Are you looking to develop an actual company? You know what I'm saying? Or are you kind of doing just like one-off things that you just want to be a sole proprietor and just doing business as said person, right? One of the things that when I first started developing Honor Roll was, I had to do a lot of research just like on what the different purposes were for these, different from an S corporation, from an LLC, right? And for me, starting out, like one of the biggest things was that I needed to make sure that there was legal separation between myself and the actual entity of my company, right? And so, having yourself as an LLC means that if something happens within the company and someone sues the company, like they can't come after your personal assets, and then that has a lot of tax implications as well. That at another time we could dive into, but I would just say that Google is your best friend. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like Google, like just the different definitions of these corporations. Go to the Secretary of State, your state's Secretary of State website. And look up and see what all the options are. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call for clarity as well. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, AJ?
I mean, I'll say the same. I think you said it perfectly. I'll just add, LegalZoom is always there as well. If you're looking for immediate counsel, those guys will hop on the phone with you. Of course, it's for a fee, but they definitely will hop on the phone with you and show you exactly how you need to be set up. I think you answered it perfectly.
Word, that's what's up. We got another one from Perks of Atlanta. How do you balance keeping up with the culture and maintaining originality when it comes to contributing to the culture? Appreciate that question, Perks of Atlanta. What's your thought? What's your take on that, AJ?
So, funny thing is, I try not to keep up with the culture. And to be honest, I think that that's the best way to be, because then you'll find that you are truly making something original. When you are keeping up so much and you're copying aesthetics, even, it's like, okay, everybody went small logo. I remember it was maybe had to be about 7 years ago. Streetwear went super minimal, and they said graphic tees were dead. And I'm like, graphic tees will
Boy, oh
never
boy, was
die.
they wrong.
Right. I told the retailers, I was just like, listen, because I'm consulting at this time, and I'm just like, graphic tees will never die. I know that you want this minimal look because it looks cool, and GQ is putting this out as this is what grown man looks like. But I'll never forget when Jay-Z said that he was gonna button up. He was 30 plus. He was like, no more jerseys, right? And then he came to Cleveland. I was in retail at the time. He came to Cleveland. Everybody bought button-ups for his concert. And the next day, we started getting like people trying to come in and return button-ups and stuff. And I asked one of the guys, I was like, "How was the concert last night?" He was like, "It was dope, man. You know, Jay-Z showed up wearing a Jordan 45 jersey." I'll never forget that. And I'm just like, this is why.
So niggas was tight. They went and spent that 120 on that button up.
Listen, they was all in there buttoned up, and he was in a 45 jersey. You know why? Because even him, he's saying things, but if you allow whatever is being said to influence you, then you'll be disappointed. It's a perfect example of what disappointment looks like. So for me, how I do keep up is there's a level of keeping up because I'm buying some of the latest shoes. So I'm buying them as my canvas to prove that maybe this design could have been better. So, I'll get a Fear of God shoe. I'll get, a Puma model that I like, but I got to be inspired first. So it's not just about trends alone. It's just really about finding what moves you and then doing something original on that and with that.
Word. Yo, so we have another question from Jared Green Speaks. There's a big difference between serving others and collaborating. How important is it to stick to the mission and to stay in, to stay in alignment with God's direction?
It's super important. I think that when we're talking about God's direction, to me, there's success that you can have every time. I think what people have viewed, some people have told me, they're like, man, everything that you do is dope. They're looking at what I'm doing and the collaborations I've done, and they're saying, man, that was a success, and it's just back to back, another one. That hasn't come through my own doing. It hasn't come through just me being so smart that I just know exactly what to do with all these collabs. It's through prayer and direction. I think that's how classics are made. Like, I don't want anything that I do to be just something that got done and then it was part of an era. Like, I want to be able to go and put on the first shoes that I designed for somebody or a company or brand and still have relevance. And I found that space through staying aligned.
Yo, another thing I want to add to that for Jared is like, there's only one of you. You know, and while I definitely believe that there is no such thing as autonomy on ideas, I remember when I first started Honor Roll, after I got a couple of people that hit me up like, yo, I was thinking about the same name. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that, there's a reality that one, you have to be intentional about, when you have something good, like, move on it. Like, don't sit there and wait. But then on top of that, you got to recognize, like, when you're dealing with, said artist or company or brand, like, don't, like, be confident in what it is that you're offering, and don't, I think that there's a balance between being able to negotiate, because, like, when you're taking two entities, it's like being married. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have these two people with these two individual identities, and you're trying to merge that into one. That by nature is going to look different. So don't have such an ego to where you're not willing to give and take. Like, recognize that you're like, this person. If I'm saying I want to work with this person or this company, that's because they have something valuable, to bring to the table, just as much as I do. Now, if you get to a point to where you feel like that person or that brand or that company isn't respecting the value that you're bringing to the table, you have to be okay with walking away, even if it looks crazy.
Yep, that's facts.
So let me see. Another question that we have here. Let me see. All right, yeah. So I don't even know how to pronounce that first part, but something Trinidad. Shout out to you
That's my
for
guy.
logging in. Okay, shout out to your mans. And I think you kind of we kind of touched on this on radio about making classics, but the question was best route to making tactful yet fashionable clothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you kind of touched on that just a second ago. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I would think that, since you're in the clothing space right now, I would say you probably can handle that. I would just say when he's saying tactful, I imagine there's some things. I imagine the word taste. There's
Okay.
certain things that I deem right now that's happening in fashion that's pretty tacky,
Yeah.
and doesn't have taste. How do I stay in the space of creating something that's tactful? Is constantly trying to develop something that people can use. I think if
Yeah.
you're consumed with, hey, this person can wear this way, that way, that way, and it doesn't interrupt their normal everyday wardrobe and can integrate into it, then you've
Yeah.
created something that was useful. That's my goal at all times. It's like I want
Yeah.
the person to be able to wear this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll just double down on that a bit. I mean, being functional is important. I think that you're gonna at this point in time in history, it's gonna be very hard for someone to create a new silhouette that hasn't already been done. Like the shapes themselves, are pretty much what they are. Like even when you start taking a look at I think like the idea of sampling is probably like the best reference that I have. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you listen to some of Kanye's production,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's difficult to tell where it originally came from.
Right. Right.
Because you've taken something that once was, and then you morphed it into something that was completely different. So like one of the
Yeah.
things that from a design aspect that we take an honor roll is, yeah, like first of all, what is functional,
Mm-hmm.
and then two, on top of that, like is what we're designing, has it already been done before? Like does
Right.
someone already, and that can go from, different accents that we may use, specific colors that we may use on specific silhouettes, mixing seasonal textiles, with other seasons. Like we're constantly thinking about that, and we're all, and our brains are never turned off as well. Like we just did this basketball short that is supposed to come out in spring. It's probably gonna be moved out to summer now. When
Yeah.
I see you tomorrow, bro, I'll make sure to bring it to you so you can take a look at it. But
Okay.
it's the whole idea was how can we take something that has a fall and winter appeal, but actually make it functional in the spring and the summertime.
Right.
Like how can I mix these elements? So for me, like inspiration is coming from music, it's coming from being outside, it's coming from
Right.
history. I
Yeah.
am constantly, again, going back to the conversation that we've been having this whole time, reinvesting in myself,
Yeah.
in both seeing what people have done before, as well as
Right.
to see like, yo, like what are some things that are dope that, like if they just would have added this little touch to it, or if they would have made it longer or wider or added this kind of impression on it, like this would have been crazy. Like I'm always thinking about that. So having a critical mind at all times, like it allows you to pick up so much stuff, man.
Right. Right.
Let me see. What are the questions we have? We'll have a couple more minutes and then we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Jacoby, stay coming with the questions. All right, bro. How much thought process goes into your campaign ad when pushing that collection or brand, or should I just let it be or organically built?
For me, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, but I'm careful not to overthink it. And I think a lot of times we'll stress ourselves out when you're overthinking it because you start thinking into stuff that you don't have, and when you when you try to go so big, sometimes you'll future the campaign or whatever it is that you should have did today. You'll put it in the future because you're like, well, I don't have these things to get my full vision out, so therefore I'll wait. And I think that
Mm,
that's I think we should always be trying to use what's closest to us and the tools that we have. A lot of the pictures on my page, if they're not shot by my son, who is a photographer, then they're shot on my iPhone. The majority of them, you know, I just started having them shoot, but the majority of them are shot on my iPhone. I think the iPhone has a great camera. I think Android's got great cameras. Use what you have, you know what I mean, and combine how to move.
You back? Okay, yeah, I thought I lost you for a second. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you good.
Yeah.
Nah, man,
Okay.
that's what's up,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. I just think people can keep it simple. Yeah.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, we hope that, man, like this time that we blocked out for study breaks today, man, that it was an encouragement, and that you guys were also able to get like some tangible walkaways with this, man. I do before we wrap up, Adrian, I just want to like hear from you, like, what are you working on right now? Like, are there any projects that you got going on that we could be looking out for?
Man, yeah, I don't know if I can talk about them just yet,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
there's a lot in the works, y'all. There's a lot in the works. I think people are going to be thoroughly surprised to see how much was done during this COVID-19 era that we're experiencing. And once again, I just got to say, like, shout out to God for being there and to continually keep me and my team, you know, in a space where there are opportunities that are coming in, even in this time. I think it's crazy. I can tell you some things. I got something coming up with Puma. I got a couple things coming up with Puma.
Okay.
More clothing this year. More
Okay.
clothing, more
Okay.
clothing collaborations. I can say
Clothing
that.
collaborations.
Clothing collaborations.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
at least 4 this year.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that. I will be dropping my own shoe before the year is out. So
Okay.
there's an Alexander John brand shoe that will be dropping before the year is out. And I have a clothing line that I'll be putting out, a capsule as well. So
Okay.
got some stuff going. New Era. I can say New Era's name because that, you know,
Yeah.
it's not too much, but I got some stuff going though.
That's what's up, man. Well, yo, hopefully we get a chance to do some great work with you, you know, within
For sure.
this year, this COVID season, man.
I was gonna tell people I might drop these. I just might drop them. I don't know. People been hitting me about them even on this thing. I might just drop them just so they can see.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, if you do, I mean, size 12, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can make that happen when I pull up, the other day.
Right. We'll be in here tomorrow. So
Yeah,
yep.
we'll see what's cracking, man.
All right.
But yo, man, we appreciate everyone hopping on. Again, like, we'll be back here again on Thursday. Just keep looking out for the posts that are going to be announcing the dates. At this point, it's going to be every Tuesday and Thursday. You know, do us a favor, go ahead and follow. You know, if you haven't followed Alexander John Designs yet, go ahead and follow him. Follow Honor Roll Clothing. Yeah, man, we appreciate y'all, man, and yeah, you guys have a good one.
All right, bro. Appreciate you, man.
All right, bro. I'll see you later on, man.
Yep. Later.